I want to thank all of you for being here today. I am joined by, my name is Senator Anthony Williams. I represent the 8th Senatorial District. I'm also the Democratic Whip of the Democratic Caucus. I'm joined by my leaders, Jay Costa right behind me, Senator Vincent Hughes, Chairman of Appropriations, and other members of the Democratic Caucus are also aligned with me today, and we're gratefully appreciative of them being here. Senator Taglione, who is playing another prominent role in co-sponsoring this activity today, is getting off the turnpike, so she will join us quickly. For me, today is a very simple request of the General Assembly. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is in dire need of additional funding, and I'm sure many of you in the press would say, what's new about that for any agency and all agencies in state government today? Senator Hughes will illuminate our budget crisis as it is, but we start with a very basic premise, and that is to have a civilized society, all citizens have to be respected in that society. And we are a country of laws, and if one does not respect the government nor its laws, then we do not have a civilized society nor a country, let alone a state. Pennsylvania, the central tenement and extension of that is the Human Relations Commission. It has done the work and the nitty-gritty work and sometimes the ugly work of pointing out disparities for certain types of Pennsylvanians. There is not a cornerstone or hallmark of any specific Pennsylvania, but there's several groups which obviously come to mind. People of color, the disabled, veterans, women. Many people have been discriminated at their job. All use the Human Relations Commission to investigate those claims or those allegations of discrimination. It is a singular agency that is prescribed and described as the umbrella and protector of the least of us in Pennsylvania. Without this agency functioning at a basic level, not an optimal level, at a basic level, we are cutting at the fabric of the protection of every Pennsylvanian that believes in equality within this state. There are far too many cases that I could describe today that unfortunately go unattended to because we do not have the capacity in the Human Relations Commission to attend to those charges and allegations. We are joined by a variety of voices here today that want to make sure that we are recognizing the dire consequence of not protecting Pennsylvanians in this regard. Mr. Homer Floyd is with us today. He is the retired 40-year executive director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, who is known as the state's Dean of Civil Rights. We appreciate him being here today. Let us give him a round of applause. Mr. Hank Butler, who heads the PA Jewish Coalition, its executive director, is with us as well. Let's applaud him. Jennifer Garman, representing Disability Rights of Pennsylvanians. Let's give her a round of applause. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce the last name correctly, so just shout it out if I do it incorrectly. Jeff Iseman, representing the Pennsylvania Statewide Independent Living Council. And we have representatives from the ARC of Philadelphia. Thank you all for being here today. Those who send regrets are Chairman Joel Bolstein, who is chairman of the PHRC, Human Relations Commission, who is an extraordinary person, and it speaks to, this is not a claim of Democrat or Republican or even independent. It's a claim that all of us desire, and Joel at a recent hearing described himself as a Pennsylvanian, not as a Republican, and I thought that he was appropriately placed in that regard. Andy Hoover of the ACLU also wanted to be here today, but he is at the hearing that is to include the LGBT as a non-discriminatory party. Before I go on, I want to introduce the other co-sponsor of this event, Senator Taglione, for some opening comments.
Thank you. The Human Relations Commission is the sole agency in the Commonwealth to protect civil rights. Its mission, and I'm going to read this, is to promote equal opportunity for all and enforce Pennsylvania's civil rights law and protect people from unlawful discrimination. You know, I've been in this chair 13 and a half years. And the Human Relations Commission protects my rights. Discriminated against for housing, for job opportunities, and just living. When there's a neighborhood in the city of Philadelphia that's about to erupt, instead of getting the guns out, we bring the Human Relations Commission in. This is an extremely important agency, and we have to make sure that it remains. Our rights, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's disability, we need one agency that we can go to that is going to be neutral and try to bring a common goal to protect everybody in the process. And that's why I wanted to share this press conference with Senator Williams, because I feel very closely in my heart that we need somebody to protect our civil rights.
Thank you, Senator Taglione. Before I introduce the two other primary speakers, I'd like to introduce the leader of the Democratic Caucus, Jay Costa. Understand this is a Democratic push, not just individual senators. This is a Democratic push to have this increase in funding, because when we witness what is unfortunately happening across this country, when you turn your eyes to Florida, when you talk to the statistics of hate crimes in Pennsylvania, or groups that are growing, this entity, this agency, is the sole protector of all Pennsylvanians when they find themselves in that dark moment that they would not expect as an American to be treated less than. And so I'm appreciative that our leader, Jay Costa, is with us for a few words.
Thank you very much, Senator Williams. Thank you. Let me begin by saying thank you certainly to Senator Williams and Senator Tartaglione and all the groups who are here today, because how very important it is to have this conversation. And while I have the honor of serving as the Democratic leader, I'm very proud of all of our members are very much part of this conversation that needs to be taken to the next level. But I want to be clear that this is not just a Democratic conversation. This is a conversation about the men and women of this Commonwealth that we're aiming to protect, and that this agency does an outstanding job and needs the resources to be able to do that. And that's what's important here. This is about getting bipartisan, bicameral support to allow resources to flow to an agency that's in desperate need to be able to continue to fulfill its mission of protecting men and women in this Commonwealth. And at the end of the day, when we are having a conversation today and tomorrow and the next several days, concluding our state budget, it's about priorities. And we wanted to make certain through Senator Williams' work and Senator Tartaglione's work that we raise this issue and to create and make it a priority as we go forward in this budget conversation. So I'm very, very pleased to be here with my colleagues. I'm very honored our caucus has its full support lent to this project and this effort, and we're going to work very, very hard to be able to bring it to fruition. But the agencies and the individuals who are here today representing those agencies, thank you for the work that all of you do, because we have to work hand in hand with all of you as well as with the Commission, as Tina said, to be the neutral arbiter of those instances where discrimination has taken place. So I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you, Senator Williams and Tina, for the work that you all are doing, and all of you for being here today. And we will continue to fight to make certain that we drive more resources to that end. Thank you. Thanks,
I'd like to introduce the gentleman who is most responsible for our budgetary discussion, Chairman of Appropriations, Senator Vincent Hughes.
Put the pressure
That's
on,
right.
baby. Put the pressure on. Context and history is important. Thanks Senator Williams, Senator Tartaglione, all the members, all the groups for rallying around this initiative, around this issue. It's always good to be in the presence of Homer Floyd. If I'm with Homer, if I'm in the same place with Homer, I'm usually in a good place. I'm usually in a good space. But history and context is important. This whole idea of human relations commissions was started probably, Homer, I'm going to say about a half a century ago or so. Generated probably by, if I have my history correct, probably by the federal government to make sure that in the fight for equal rights and civil rights, as Senator Williams indicated, that there were entities in place in communities all across various states, in this case Pennsylvania, that were there for the average citizen to go to deal with an issue of discrimination. And Pennsylvania, being the leader that it can be when it is its best self, at one point had the most highly rated Human Relations Commission in the nation. I want to be clear about that. We had the top-rated Human Relations Commission of any state in the nation. We did. We dealt with Klan issues. We filed lawsuits, which is unheard of these days. We filed lawsuits, we dealt with Klan issues and a growing number of Klan members all across the Commonwealth. We were number one. And in the last few years, as Senator Williams will tell you, we've fallen, unfortunately, into disgrace. Hard-working members of that Human Relations Commission have been stymied in their ability to go out. Without a lack of appropriate and proper resources, it makes it difficult for the staff to go do what it needs to do in a time where the best of us is being challenged on an hourly basis. So we're here as a group, legislators, senators, average folks, regular people, who know the value of being treated equally, who knows and understands that if treated equally, you don't know how far a person can soar, and say that enough is enough. Let's put the resources into the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Let's help it restore itself to be the #1 agency of its kind in the nation. Aggressive, engaged, helping people be the best. That was the best thing, and I'll wind up here with this. The best thing that the Human Relations Commission did was when they knew of issues or problems, they would send teams of people, staff folks, out to communities to help those communities work through their issues, work through their problems. It was a great preventive force. We need to return it to that. We are fighting hard as a caucus to make sure that increased funding goes to the Human Relations Commission so we can return this agency to its #1 status. We deserve this as a state, but the 12 million people deserve this even more. Thank you very much.
We are joined by PHRC's Executive Director, Joan Edwards.
Hello, you beautiful people, and hello, you beautiful, dedicated, and hardworking PHRC staff. I salute you. I am Joan Edwards, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, and I thank the Senate Democratic Caucus, Senator Williams, Senator Tartaglione, sorry, for the opportunity to talk about the important work our commission employees do every day to eradicate discrimination and deliver justice to Pennsylvanians. If you doubt that discrimination exists in Pennsylvania, consider this. You are an African-American man who reports to work at a manufacturing company and finds a noose hanging near your workstation. You complain and your employer does nothing. You want to join your friends at a popular restaurant in downtown Harrisburg, but because you use a wheelchair, the only way you can enter the restaurant is through the kitchen in the back of the building. You're working at a job where you love it. When you become pregnant, when you tell your boss you were pregnant, he thinks you can't perform your job duties, and he fires you. These are recent situations that prompted Pennsylvanians to file discrimination cases with the PHRC. Every year, PHRC receives thousands of discrimination complaints like these. Presently, there are 3,200 complainants waiting to receive PHRC services. If the governor's state fiscal year 16-17 budget request for $12 million is given to PHRC to fund a commission, this is what we can do. Our investigator caseloads would decrease from 100 cases to about 75 cases, so that the complaints I just talked about will be handled within the year they were made. Justice delayed is justice denied. We could hire 3 additional education and outreach professionals to provide about 2,100 additional hours of education and training to businesses, advocacy groups, nonprofits, and local governments so they can avoid discrimination complaints by learning how to comply with the PA Human Relations Act. We could have staff travel to our 9 volunteer advisory councils throughout the state who help the Commission address civil tension and prevent situations like those that occurred in Baltimore, Maryland, and Ferguson, Missouri. I again urge you to pass the Governor's State Fiscal Year 16-17 budget request and leave you with this message. If PHRC was given more than the requested budget amount, we could do even greater work for Pennsylvania, like expanding our award-winning mediation program by placing a mediator in each of PHRC's 3 regional offices in Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh to diminish the public's wait time to be heard. Reestablishing a statewide testing program like our neighboring state, New York, uses to uncover and stop the subtle housing discrimination that plagues thousands of people in Pennsylvania's rental markets. Dedicating attorneys to exclusively work on potential systemic discrimination cases like the one the Commission executed with a large urban transportation provider. We estimate this systemic PHRC case will prevent about 3,500 acts of discrimination from occurring, thereby saving the taxpayers about $17.5 million. Continue police training to assist with police and community member relationships, and increase the number of schools that partners with the Commission and the U.S. Department of Justice to provide conflict resolution programs for students called the SPIRIT program. PHRC stands to lose quite a bit without your support and the regaining of funding and staffing. There is still a lot of work that needs to be done in Pennsylvania to eradicate discrimination. PHRC is committed to eliminating all forms of discrimination and to helping to create communities where all Pennsylvanians live in dignity, equity, and justice. Thank you all very much for your support.
Last but not least is one of the frontline investigators who's with us today. We invite Denise Fahey.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Senator Williams, for this opportunity to speak. And naturally, I thank all of the senators' colleagues as well. I am especially honored to be here. Yesterday marked my 2nd full year at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, and I am proud of my service with the agency and to the people of the Commonwealth. Many people are not familiar with our agency. I'll keep my explanation of what we do basically short. We enforce the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act and the Pennsylvania Fair Education Opportunities Act. We investigate civil rights violations, and where there is wrongdoing, we prosecute the offenders. Moreover, we advocate for those who don't have a voice otherwise. Our clients are most often impoverished. Sometimes they have intellectual disabilities. They don't have the resources to take on a wealthy violator of these laws or the wealthy violator of these laws. Often our clients don't know the full extent to which their rights have been violated. We exist to both tilt the balance more evenly between the powerless and powerful, but also to ensure that we help create a Pennsylvania where someday we may not exist. As our Commonwealth has the 5th highest number of hate groups out of all 50 states, and I want to repeat that, our Commonwealth has the 5th highest number of hate groups of all the 50 states. The need for our commission is pretty clear. We stand as an integral part of building a more tolerant and just Pennsylvania for all of the Commonwealth. And as an employee, I can honestly say that we all want the Commission to be a part of a proactive solution. We want to be able to help build more inclusive communities through outreach and education. Rather than just investigating adults, we'd rather also be teaching children. Rather than suing firms over violations, we'd rather be developing programs for CEOs and HR departments on how to increase productivity, sales, and brand valuation by building inclusive corporate cultures. Unfortunately, the pervasive cost-cutting of public services in Pennsylvania over the past decade has left our commission in a mere shadow of what it should be. Don't get me wrong, I work with some of the most dedicated, and they're here with us today. That's how dedicated these guys are. I work with some of the most dedicated, hardworking employees in the entire Commonwealth. Our investigators are fair, yet compassionate. We favor neither accusers nor the accused. We favor the facts. And that is one to be repeated. We favor the facts. Unfortunately, our pursuit of the truth is hamstrung by fewer resources than ever before. Our investigators carry caseloads of 80 to 100 cases each. Caseloads mean 80 to 100 people of the Commonwealth who are deserving our full attention. Many with their lives on hold awaiting our determination. As we rapidly approach the deadline for 2016 to 2017 state budget, I humbly ask members of the General Assembly to provide increasing funding for Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. We've lost more than half of our staff over the past 8 years. We are in dire need of funding for staff so that we may be advocates that the law calls for us to be, that we as employees came to this commission to be, and that Pennsylvania deserve. Together we can build a more inclusive, diverse, and tolerant Pennsylvania. Thank you for being here, and thank you for hearing us out.
I also want to thank Senator Rob Teplitz, whose district we're in, who is fortunate enough to have Homer Ford as one of his constituents, who made sure Homer got here today as a participant today. So thank you for being here. And also I saw Senator Udicek, John Udicek was also with us. We want to thank them for being here. In conclusion, and any questions to be asked, again, the question will be asked, why this agency, why now? And I would suggest to you that we will certainly not desert our responsibilities towards public schools or to public safety through our prisons. But I couldn't imagine we would sit here and talk about half of the staff of a public school is decimated and we would not find it to be in crisis, let alone not functioning. Or half of the staff of a prison or a social agency to be decimated and not be talking about it. And more importantly, the magnitude of cost here is relatively modest in this overall budget. We're talking about $2 million to get back to some level of functioning, $2 million in billion-dollar budget. And so, on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves, we are speaking for them today. It is not normal in a budgetary season that we take the time to have a press conference about one particular agency. But the extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves here today with this particular agency should make all Pennsylvanians fearful. And certainly those of us who are concerned about the bully in the school, or the bully in the boardroom, or frankly just the bully who decides that he can intimidate women or people of color or that person who is disabled. This is their moment. And so I'm appreciative that we're rallying, and I hope that the governor will listen. I recognize that it is a challenge in a year where the Republicans and Democrats, again, may not see eye to eye on issues. I find it, and of course it's going to be challenging in a year where there are modest, if very few revenues. But what I would say to you that is in this year, with all those challenges, the human spirit should not be sacrificed because of a decimal point. The human dignity should not be removed or stained because we cannot do what is just in Pennsylvania with regard to revenues. This is just that moment. This agency is just that significant, and we as a collection, representing those who are hundreds of thousands across Pennsylvania who need the voice, we stand there with them shoulder to shoulder, and we thank all of you for being here today. With that, I'll close.